Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Daftarkhwan Fireside. My name is Saad and I am your host for today. For over 5 years, Daftarkhwan has been building a community of entrepreneurs, freelancers, and innovators over spanning 3 cities, more than 5 sites. And this community is more than 1,500 people strong, and they're working on some of the most amazing business ideas in the startup ecosystem here in Pakistan. With these sessions, we basically aim to learn from some of the brightest minds in the startup ecosystem of Pakistan, understand from their experience and their expertise, and basically just let that shape how we are trying in our own individual capacities and our collective capacities to change the world one innovation at a time. We're very happy today to be hosting Omer, who is the co-founder and CEO of PostEx. PostEx is one of the highlights of the startup ecosystem in Pakistan for 2021. They made the news by raising one of the largest seed rounds here in the local ecosystem. And they're basically a logistics and fintech company that are on a mission to empower and support the e-commerce sector here in Pakistan. So first off, Omer, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Saad.
The first question that I have in my mind is PostEx a fintech company masquerading as a logistics company or the other way around?
So we are a hybrid of fintech and logistics. What we're trying to do is we're trying to provide capital to e-commerce platforms, and by providing them cost-effective courier services so that they can grow and they can focus on the core, which is selling the products.
So how did you guys come up with the idea? How do you identify? And how did that idea form? Was it the same as it is today on day one, or like did it evolve over time?
It did evolve a little bit, but we knew what we were doing. So because I'm from a financial background, a lot of my friends who were doing e-commerce would come to me with the cash flow issues. And they would, when I looked into the books, I realized that the cash was stuck in the transaction for 10 to 15 days. Meaning that if they were making the sale today, they were getting the cash against that sale in, let's just say, 7 to 10 days, depending on the size of the e-commerce platform. Some e-commerce platforms were getting favorable terms, others were getting the cash in 15 days, which was slowing down their growth. So we came up with the solution. 2 of us started the MVP. We ran the MVP for around 6 months. Mm-hmm. And then, the MVP was very basic, very simple, that we'll do the logistics for them and we'll provide them upfront payments against their cash on delivery orders. And then we evolved and we made it better. And then 2 other co-founders joined us in December last year. And then, we built the tech, we built the whole product, we completed the product, and then we started onboarding the clients in April.
Right.
So it evolved into a singular product or one product, which is upfront payments on cash on delivery orders with the courier services. So they're not 2 different products. If they use our courier services, they get the cash upfront. If they want the cash upfront, they get the courier services with it. So we don't charge anything specifically for the courier side of the business.
Was it like, was it always a dual focused thing from day one, or did the fintech thing or the cash flow thing come in?
It's not just the logistics that we're trying to solve. If we were just trying to solve the problem around cash on delivery and by providing them upfront payments, we would not have been solving the problem around where the cash was getting stuck, which was in the logistics cycle.
Right.
There's a transit of around 4 to 5 days, and then then they collect the cash from the consumer. They process the cash, there's a reconciliation process, and then they give the cash to the e-commerce platform. So we want to solve the problem on both sides. Rather than just providing them the cash and then transferring the problem from them to us, it's not really solving a problem.
Sure.
We wanted to solve the problem and why the cash is being stuck. So we started with upfront payments, and then we started doing the logistics ourselves, because that's the only way we could have gotten our, we're not trying to reinvent logistics.
Sure.
Just to be, clear that we're just trying to make it more efficient with tech, by putting controls, by making it more transparent, by making sure that, there is more transparency for the consumer and for the merchant.
Right.
And with that, we will provide them access to the capital. So
why is supporting e-commerce such an integral part of why you guys do this?
We're still very young as a startup, and we're still learning. Even if you look at the team, they're still very young. They're understanding the market. They're understanding the e-commerce. So there is one thing that is our mission, is to put the partners or our partners first. Rather than putting the business first, we want to put the partners first, and we want them to grow. So for us, their growth matters, because our growth is associated with their growth. If they grow, we are going to grow. If they're not going to grow, we'll be just left behind.
Yeah.
Not just as a startup, but as the whole ecosystem. So it's really important to support the ecosystem, learn from it, rather than putting business first or putting our interest first.
But why e-commerce in particular?
We have to look at the future. What is the future, on how the markets are going to evolve? Is it going to be e-commerce, or is it going to be just offline businesses? So we are trying to stay ahead of the curve, stay ahead of the whole situation that we are in right now, which is that offline is transforming into online businesses. And that's why we're supporting the e-commerce. That's why it's very important for them for these businesses to have access to these kind of services, because that makes their transition very easy. Otherwise, if we just keep supporting, because if you look at the offline businesses, they do have access to the banking, they do have access to the capital. They have a shop which they can, collateralize to get the loans. But when you look at e-commerce, what do they have? It's all digital, and when they go to the banks or when they try to raise capital, they're unable to do that because they don't have anything to put as a collateral. They don't have anything tangible. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to understand these businesses. We're trying to use their digital assets as collateral for us to provide these kind of services, to provide access to capital or to funds so that they can invest on their businesses, and make this transition very easy for offline businesses as well, that they don't think this as a challenge to go online and start doing e-commerce.
So tell us about the other founders, the other three founders.
Three,
And how did you guys meet, and whose idea was this? Did you arrive at this business model and this idea all at the same time together independently? Kya hua tha?
There are always brainstorming sessions, how to make it better, how to implement it. Idea of paying upfront is one thing, but how to implement it, how to create an experience, and how to make it technically possible. So it's coming from all three of us or four of us, different ideas, different brainstorming questions or ways of doing it, ways of implementing it. Because there's a lot of risk if you're paying somebody upfront. What are the risks involved, and how do you create an experience around it, and how do you technically make it possible for our business to make sure that we're not at risk, So idea is one thing, and making it into an idea which we can actually sell or start onboarding clients or actually make it into a business is another. So it's all four of us who transformed it into a startup, into a business model. Babar is somebody who was the solutions architect for EasyPaisa. So he's from a technical background. He was a managing consultant for systems. Saad is somebody who started this with me back in 2020, early 2020. We ran the MVP. I've known Saad for around 15 years. Babar I've known around 5 years. I met him in the gym. And then it's Adil. Adil is ex-Cream. He was taking care of their client relations in the base camp in Dubai. And he was my flatmate there. So I've known him for around 7 years. So that's how we sat down, and decided to make it a business model, from an idea to turning it into a startup, and then into a service, and now into one of the fastest growing startups in Pakistan or in the region. So it was all four of us who contributed equally to this.
Very interesting, and very different kind of ways to kind of get connected as well. How did you meet Babar exactly at the gym? Were you so asking for a spotter or asking for a tech guy? What happened?
No, at that time, so I was working for another tech company, and I was looking for somebody to provide me a technical solution, or we wanted to build a product at that time, and I wanted somebody from the technical background, or somebody from some software engineer. So I was at the gym. I was asking people what do they do, and then there was this guy sitting there. He was asking me that, are you looking for somebody from computer sciences? And I was like, yes. So he was like, yeah, he's the master. I was like, I didn't take it seriously, but I went there and I spoke to him, and then yes, he was actually somebody who knew what he was doing. He was very smart, and he had a vision as well. So that's how we got to know each other, and then we became friends. And then when I started PostEx, so he was the first one that I spoke to for the technical advice, technical consultancy, and then it turned into being co-founders.
So you guys all get together, you and Saad, start of 2020, and then the other guys join in around the end of 2020, and then you're into it all guns blazing. So like walk us through the fundraising side of it as well, like fundraising during COVID. I mean, if 2021 is one testament, it's probably to the fact that COVID hasn't really hampered fundraising efforts for startups, but I'm sure it was a scary time, especially kind of getting into logistics. Scary but also exciting, I'm sure, with the influx of a lot of online payments, a lot of online e-commerce in general, a lot of brands going online as well that needed a lot of like enablement and a lot of logistical support, technical support, financial support, and kind of being able to do that as well. But like just walk us through that process. Like you guys have managed to raise one of the largest seed rounds in Pakistan, which is a big deal. But was that any kind of like push on the back of your mind that we have to raise a very large round? Was it like, how did you think about it? How did you arrive at the number? And like how walk in the park was the process of raising that round?
So when we went live, or when we were running the MVP in March 2020, because of COVID, there was a lot of demand for the product or demand for the services that we were providing. Because when everybody started doing e-commerce, logistics company did have some cash flow issues, and they were not able to settle the merchants on time. So that created a lot of gap for us, and that did give us a lot of push, and because we were running MVP, we didn't have those kind of funds to onboard bigger clients. And when we started onboarding 5, 10, 15 clients, and it started becoming into a big deal, because we had the data, we had the understanding of the businesses, and then there was a networking effect, because they kept coming to us with their friends that they are running e-commerce platforms or e-commerce stores. Why don't you onboard them? So you can't really say no to your existing client. So we onboarded more and more clients. By December, we had enough data, we had enough understanding, and we knew how to structure the product. And then that's where Adil and Babar came in, and then they, Babar built the tech. And then by April, we went live. We realized that even the bigger players want to use our service or would like to capitalize on this. So that's where we realized that we have to go out and raise funds. We have to speak to VCs. We have to raise outside funds, because we can't really keep doing it from our own pockets, or we can't keep bootstrapping it, because even though we were profitable at that time, those profits were not enough to meet the requirements
for growth,
or for financing. Financing is the most important part of our equation, where we have to have enough funds to do the financing to provide these services. So we went out, we spoke to a lot of VCs. Faisal Aftab was the first one to back us. And then he did a lot of introductions, and those introductions turned into deals. And then we ended up raising $8.6 million. So the idea was to raise enough to actually, scale. And show proof of concept, because this has not been done before anywhere. And everybody was questioning if it's possible or not. If it's not being done anywhere else, what makes you think it's going to be successful here? Well, the answer is simple, that we are building products for the Pakistani market. We're not trying to copy something that is being done somewhere else. And the challenge is around cash on delivery. Everybody knows that, but nobody's trying to solve it by catering cash on delivery. They're trying to solve it with digital payments or other products, which is going to take time for the e-commerce or for the Pakistani market to understand and to evolve into.
There's clearly a lot of traction that the market is giving you, but did you at any point stop and think exactly that it's not being done? Like maybe there's something wrong inherently with the model that we don't know. We're not, maybe we're a little naive to be thinking that, obviously, this is the problem, this is the solution, let's just kind of put two and two together. Like, did you stop and think, yaar, ye nahi ho sakta?
No, we never thought that. that thought never crossed my mind.
Sure.
We were questioned a lot. There were a lot of people who said no. It's not like that we pitched the first time and we raised funds. We pitched to a lot of VCs and they said no.
Did that help?
It made me prove them wrong.
Sure.
As simple as that. Because when you're doing something and you know it's being done, and then somebody comes in and says that it's not being done somewhere else. So what makes you think it's going to be successful here? You want to prove them wrong because you know it's growing. You know the demand is there, and then the way they look at the market is very different than the way we look at the market.
Yeah.
We look at it as an opportunity to help businesses. They look at it as an opportunity how to capitalize on that. From their point of view, maybe they think that it's not doable. Doable because they have their own way of looking at businesses. We have our own way of looking at businesses. We're problem solvers. And we see a problem, we want to solve it. So no, that thought never crossed our mind.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's also an interesting. That's also an interesting way to kind of look at things because, for anyone else, you would get that kind of pushback from the market, from investors and other people. You would at least just kind of stop and wonder am I on the right track? Because fundamentally, I think one of the more important reasons why we kind of have these conversations and these discussions also is because it's not all standing ovations and TED Talks, right? It's a lot of really gritty, sleepless nights type situation where entrepreneurs are just kind of wondering and second guessing and just kind of moving back and forth and going back to the drawing board over and over again. It's really interesting that you guys kind of had that kind of clarity to be able to kind of push right through that and push through that doubt as well. But I think, that insight is absolutely critical, that it needs to be like a localized model. It can't just always be an imported solution which is working in the Valley or working in Europe or working on Nigeria and just kind of import it and put it through as it is.
As startups, we have to evolve with the market or with the ecosystem. We can't bring in the products which are being done or which are being used in the markets which are more mature than Pakistani market. And we know that these things are going to change. We know cash on delivery is going to change, and we have to change with it. But that's the point. That startups have the capability to evolve. And we have to always keep in mind, okay, if we're doing it now, why are we doing it? And how is it going to help your business and their businesses, and for how long? So you're not in the market just to solve one problem.
Sure.
And there are a lot of other problems which e-commerce platforms have. So this is how you start. This is the first problem that you solve, and then how do you want to play out in long term or in 2 years from now, 3 years from now?
Sure.
Because we're not in this business to come in and go out. We have no intention of getting acquired or selling the business. We are here to change things. And we're not going anywhere.
Makes sense.
Until we have changed it, we have made the e-commerce better, and then we want to represent Pakistan at global. We want to represent Pakistan at global level. Not just in Pakistan. We want to be top startup in the world, not just in Pakistan. So it's a long way to go.
No, absolutely. But we need to dream big, and you guys are well on your way. So again, going back to the whole fundraising thing. Because fundamentally, what's also important from this is to kind of take away how other companies or other startups need to think about fundraising as well. Should they have a number in mind? Should they have competitors in mind? Should they have just the next 12 months, 18 months, 24 months in mind, or how should they think about it?
They need to have a minimum, number in mind, because that's how you decide your runway, and at seed stage or pre-seed stage, you're not really obsessed about your competitors because you're getting into the market, for competing or
and effectively creating another market as well.
Exactly. So you're building your product, you're testing your product, you're building the team. That's why you raise seed funds. You need to have a number in mind that this is the minimum we need to actually implement this idea or implement this product. This is how big the team needs to be, what kind of team you need, what kind of funds you need to do that, to build the infrastructure, to build the tech, to build the team. And then when you start actually using, or when you start using those funds and you start showing people that, okay, this is how effectively you can use those funds, for them it's very easy to write you bigger checks.
Yeah.
For them, the only thing that they care about is if you can actually utilize those funds or not, or if you're able to execute or not.
Yeah.
And once you have shown that you can execute, it's very easy to raise funds. But it's just the first part, which is the difficult part, to get the first check in. A small round, which was $1.2 million, which was a part of seed. But because of the inbound and because of the interest from global VCs, we couldn't say no to them. If somebody wants to come to Pakistan for the first time, we want to welcome them. We want PostEx. We want to be the first deal that they do in Pakistan, because that's how they open up to another market.
The ecosystem. Yeah.
So there were two VCs that came in and wanted to invest in PostEx for the first time in a Pakistani market. So we couldn't say no. They were global VCs. So that's how it started building up.
Makes sense.
And then
if you can show traction, that's that. But hats off to Faisal and Zain Capital for kind of backing you guys at the early stage as well.
And Faisal is one of the reasons, is somebody who actually kept pushing us to do more and more, because he was somebody who understood what we were doing, who understood that, it's a big, big problem there. And then he said that, okay, this is the best solution there is. You have to keep doing it. And that's one of the reasons why we never questioned the business model, because it was coming from somebody who's very experienced, and who knew the market, who knew the ecosystem, and who has seen other markets as well, And if somebody like that is backing you and telling you that, okay, this is the right kind of product for the market, and you have to keep pushing it.
There's validation right there.
Yes, exactly.
So what compelled you to move to Dubai? You got your education from the UK, you moved back, you got some training, I think about 3 years or so in Pakistan. Did you just want to move to Dubai just for the heck of it? Because I think all of us and our friends wanted to do it as well. But what compelled you, and what happened? How was that like?
So when I look at the Dubai market, there was a lot to learn, and I wanted to learn. That's why I wanted to go there. And sales has been my specialty, so I said that, okay, let's go to the market, to a new market, and learn, about the people, about what they're doing there. And when I moved there, so it wasn't really that easy. The transition was not that easy. I was fired around 3 times there, not because of my performance, but because of the ethical issues, because there are a lot of problems there in that market. So, and when you start working there, then you realize that, it's not right, and then when you say no to somebody, and then either they show you the door, or you have to start doing what they're doing, and that's the reason, I had to keep switching, or I was forced to keep changing jobs until I started working with EMPG Group. It was which is Bayou, Samin.com, which is
the original Pakistani unicorn.
Yes. So I learned a lot there. Amazing team, amazing execution. They really picked up their Bayou was the top property pool when I was working
in the
there.
region.
They still are, and then they picked up from, so that they were second, and then they moved to the first, beating Property Finder, and it was a very proud moment for me, being a Pakistani and working for a Pakistani startup, that we were able to get there. And then, because it was very different from my professional studies, I had to switch.
And what happened? The first time you got fired, or so focused on issues in the career, or in whatever you're taking a stand for, that you don't even kind of emotionally register the rejection or the firing or the no's and the disapprovals, or you just kind of, do you process it a certain way and then kind of move forward differently?
So the 2 different questions. So I'm going to answer the first one first.
Sure.
Wasn't a good feeling, to be honest, being asked to leave.
Sure.
But, I knew that I'll find something else, because that's what salespeople do, So we should be able to sell ourselves to people, and that's exactly what we did. I was able to get a job within 2 to 3 weeks from that time. And when we get the rejections from investors or from e-commerce platforms, we have to understand that when you're trying to do something innovative, when you're trying to change the market, you're building that on rejections. Innovation is always rejected initially, and then people start understanding it, and then they start using it. Because whenever somebody comes to you with a new product, the first instinct would be to stay away from it. But then you have to educate, and then you have to, and there are people who would accept it, and those are the people who helped us actually bring this change into the market. And all thanks to them for taking risk with us, from the investors to the e-commerce platforms to the partners that are working with us. So we're technically building this on no's. And we still are. I mean, we still get a lot of no's, but we know that we're going to turn those no's into yes. Because we keep trying, because we keep trying, and we keep showing them with numbers.
Very interesting, and not just in Pakistan. I'm sure for a lot of emerging economies and emerging markets, like I think you're solving a big problem. And we wish you guys all the very best. This has been super interesting. Thank you so much for making the time. I know that, again, like with the fundraising and, how you guys are doing and scaling so quickly right now, I'm sure this is a super busy time for you guys. So thank you for making the time. And I think, like, specifically what I've learned from all of this, like some of the points that have really kind of stood out is this kind of innovator's mindset where you're constantly so focused on the problem that you're in that mental zone and in that spirit of taking rejections and disapprovals and even the no's that you do get in that process as part of the journey. And that's very important as well, because like fundamentally, like as a leader, as a CEO, as a co-founder, as someone who's a genuine innovator who's trying to create real change in the world, you just have to kind of get comfortable with facing some resistance, because if it were that easy and if everyone would say yes, I mean it probably already been done. I think the second thing also was very interesting was that always you just need to kind of focus on your own business when you're thinking about fundraising. You're fundamentally kind of looking at your own self and what you need, and the kind of change and the scale of the change that you're trying to create in the world, and then let everything else just kind of flow from that. Like the amount of fundraising you need to, the scale of the growth, the kind of team that you need, the kind of expertise that you need to have on the team, is all kind of flows fundamentally from the mission. And the mission for PostEx is like super exciting, super interesting, and also like I'm sure like kind of comes from like a personal space for these guys as well. Solving a problem for a bunch of friends that were having this issue in the ecosystem while they were operating, but that is also kind of happens to be coinciding with something that is on a growth trajectory right now here in Pakistan, I think like in emerging economies and like globally as a whole. Like e-commerce is here to stay. Omer, thank you so much for making the time. This was really interesting, and we wish you guys all the very best in the future, and hoping to host you again very soon.
Inshallah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.